Welcome back. We're now in chapter 2, and you should already have your environment set up. You should have your JDK installed. You should have IntelliJ. Everything should be working, should be connected to your GitHub. So now let's get into the meat of the programming as we learn data types. So let's get into it. Okay, now we're at 2.1, and we're going to be going over data types. If you're new to this cohort, or if you're new to this section and you did not go through the JavaScript section, go ahead and download the curriculum if you haven't already done so. It's free. LaunchCode offers it for free, and you can follow along with us as well, because you may be wanting to get to know and understand, is this something that you want to learn? So you're welcome to go ahead and follow along with us and do the exercises and do the studios as well. But if you're coming from JavaScript, you already understand what data types are, because that's what programming is all about. It's all about the data. So let's get into the curriculum. 2.1 data types. 2.1.1 static versus dynamic typing. Now we're getting to know the difference. We're about to learn the difference between the two. In a dynamically typed programming language like JavaScript or Python, a variable or parameter can refer to a value of any data type, string, number, object, etc. At any time when the variable is used, the interpreter figures out what type it is and behaves accordingly. Java, on the other hand, is a statically typed language. When a variable or parameter is declared in a statically typed language, the data type for the value must be specified. Repeat, understand, here's the difference between the two languages. Although JavaScript looks like the word Java, the first four letters, the first four characters are the same, but they're totally two different paradigms, and you need to understand the difference, okay? Now, once the declaration is made, the variable or parameter cannot refer to a value of any other type. So let's look at the example here. If you recall, in JavaScript, you can declare and initialize a variable, like here on line 1. Let dynamic variable assign to the string dog. And then when I console.log type of, and I pass in that variable dynamic variable, it's going to output me a string. But then remember, I can have that same variable and reinitialize it by giving it something, a whole totally different data type. And if I console.log and find the type of dynamic variable, it changes it to a number. That's why in JavaScript, we taught you that first, the unit in JavaScript, because it has so many different working parts in JavaScript, and it can get very confusing, and it takes a lot of effort to really get your head around those concepts. What we're hoping now that we're introducing Java to you, that it won't be as confusing, because a statically typed language, which we're about to find out what that means, it helps to make things a little bit more plainer and clearer and cut down on unnecessary logic errors. Okay, so back to the reading. After line 1 executes, the dynamic variable holds a string data type. After line 3, as you can see right here, the dynamic variable becomes a number type. Dynamic variable is allowed to hold values of different types, which can be reassigned, and that's what we did right here with the number 42. We reassign as needed when the program runs. However, The corresponding code in Java will result in a compile error. Here, we got to give it this keyword string. It lets the compiler know that this variable is holding a string, and that's what it expects. So if you try to come down here and reassign it a number, this is the error that you're going to get. Error, incompatible types. Int cannot be converted to a string. This is a int right here. It knows that. That's why I always say, think like the compiler. When you go through and you're looking at the code or you're writing it, you should already know what the output is going to be. It shouldn't be guesswork. You have to understand what the output is going to be so you make sure you're getting the right output and not something that you did not expect. Because remember, you have to be specific with the computer. You have to give it every detail for it to work. If you try, it doesn't think like us as human. It's not dynamically thinking where it can process information by just looking at it from experience. Only experience that the computer has is what's already been introduced to it. So, with that being said, the compiler error occurs when we try to assign 42 to the variable of type string. Notice that that string is capitalized S. Remember, that means it's letting me know that this is an object, okay? So here, take home lesson. We must declare the type of every variable. Let me read that again for you. This is important. In Java, we must declare the type of every variable and parameter in a statically typed language. This is done by declaring the data type for the variable or parameter before its name. Remember, it has to come before the name. And it says we are going to declare the data type. We have to declare it. As we did in the example above, we use string, static variable assigned $. Note, we only need to specify the type of a variable or a parameter when declaring it. You should be already familiar with this because remember, if you're coming from JavaScript, there's declaring and then how we declare the variable. We declared it with a keyword like let, var, or const. Same concept here. If you're new to Java right here, I want you to get your head around what I'm saying. You have to declare the variable with the keyword. It has to either be a string in Java, and because that data type cannot change, it lets the compiler know this is what I expect to see. If I don't see that, I'm shutting down. Now, further use of the variable or parameter does not require us to identify its type. Doing so will result in an error. You're already familiar with this. If you're new to Java, this may not make sense right now because you haven't played around with the code yet. But what this is saying here is that if I declare the variable at the top and I give it, assign it in a value or whatever, when I go down to assign, to use it, I don't have to declare it with that keyword anymore. If you do it within the same scope, it's going to give you an error. If you did it in a different scope, that's a different story, and we'll explain to you later on. But I want you to keep that in the back of your head, okay? Now, dynamic and static types are examples of different type systems. All right, so let me click on this. Let's go here. This is Wikipedia, type systems. And it kind of breaks this down. This is a pretty good article to go ahead and read. We wouldn't give it to you if we didn't think it was a good resource. So take some time and read and go over this and get a better understanding. This type system of a programming language is one of the most important high-level characteristics that programmers use when discussing the difference between languages. Here are a few examples of popular languages falling into these two categories. Under the dynamic, you have Python, Ruby, JavaScript, PHP. Under the static, you have Java, C, C++, C#, and TypeScript. Now, you're already familiar with TypeScript because we use it in Angular framework. So it follows the same principles and rules as a statically typed language. And now you may be coming a little bit more clear on why we use TypeScript. Okay? Now, because we need to give plenty of attention to types when writing Java code, let's begin by exploring the most common data type in this language. 2.1.2, strings and single characters. 2.1.2.1, 2.1.2.1, immutability. Strings in Java are immutable, means they cannot change, which means that the characters within a string cannot be changed. In 2.1.2.2, singles versus double quotation marks. Okay, this is something you want to pay attention to. This is important because this is different in Java than it is in JavaScript. It doesn't matter what quotation you use for strings. It can be a double or it can be a single, as long as you don't mix match them. But in Java, it's different, and we're about to explain why it's different. Java syntax requires double quotation marks when declaring strings. Java has another variable type, char. We don't have this in JavaScript, char, meaning character, short for character, which is used for a single character. Char uses single quotation marks. The single character can be a letter, digit, punctuation, or white space, like a tab, right? Now let's look at this. So we have string. We declare this static variable as a string. So we pass in the string dog. And then we have another variable that we have declared with the char keyword, and it's called char variable, and it has a letter D. Notice the difference between the quotations. So the rule to follow here, if it's a single character, one quote. If it's a string, double quotes, okay? Now, 2.1.2.3, manipulations. The table below summarizes some of the most common string methods available in Java. For example, we use the string variable string str, and we assign rutabaga to that str variable. So here are some methods for the string in Java. We have a char add 3. It gives us the description. It returns the character at index 3, which is A. And so 0, 1, 2, 3. Then we have the substring 2 and 4 returns the character from index 2 and 4, which is tab and which is TAB. So 0, 1, 2. So now it shows us that. Then it gives us A because we want everything in between 4. So 2, 3, 4. And so it gives us the 2 and the 4, index and everything that's in between, which is 3. So it's a range. So know how to use this method. Then we know what the length is. It returns the length of the string. So it returns all of this rutabaga. Then we have the index of, and we're just passing in the char, because it's a single quote, A. And it returns the index of the first occurrence of A. So it's going to give you the first occurrence, because you know that rutabaga has 3 A's in it. So it gives you the first occurrence. You must remember that. It's important. The split on the delimiter. Now, the split, it says here, the description is the splits It splits the string into sections at each delimiter and stores the section as elements in an array. Key here is a couple of things going here. We have an array that it stores it in as an array, means it takes whatever that string and it puts it inside of an array. So if you're new to Java or any programming language, this may not make sense to you, but understand when we get into arrays, I'll explain it to you. But if you're coming from JavaScript, we understand the delimiter where it splits it. So if I just put a single quotes or a double quotes with an empty double quotes with no space or anything, it's going to separate it on each letter. So rutabaga right here, if I do a str.split and I pass in a string, empty quote, double quotes with no spaces, it's going to split it on each one of these characters. So each one of these characters will be separated. But if I put a space on there, and let's say if my string had a sentence in it, it will break at the space. If I have a dash, it will split at the dash. Well, just remember this, and we'll give you examples as we go further in the chapters. The next one, str.concatenate string 2, concatenate string 3. In Java, concatenate concatenates only two strings. To join multiple string, method chaining is required. This is important to understand. In Java, the concatenation can only concatenate two strings. If you want to join more than two strings, we have to do some method chaining. Remember this rule. str_trim removes any white space at the beginning or the end of a string. This is good for emails. It's good for anything that you need it to be condensed. It can't have any white space in the beginning or at the end. This is a check. It checks and it gives you a fail-safe to convert things to put in the database the way you design for it to be entered. We'll explain more about that as well. Just get familiar with these methods. And then to uppercase to lowercase, it changes all alphabetic characters in the string to uppercase or lowercase respectively. So if you want the string that when they enter it in to be converted to lowercase so it can match other data strings that's in your database, because they want to match, because everything has to match. Uppercase is different from a lowercase to a computer because they get back to binary numbers. And I'll explain more on binary numbers later on, just so you can understand the difference, especially if you're new to Java. If you are coming from our cohort from JavaScript, I talked about that. Now, if you're new here looking at Java, go back and look at some of my JavaScript videos. They may be helpful to help you understand something. And I highly recommend if you would like to start with Java, because Java is one, if you can get the confusion out the way first, working in this statically typed language will be a lot easier, hopefully. All right, str contains. Does it contain this text? And it searches for the specified text within a string and returns true or false. So this is a Boolean. str equals other string. Compare strings for equality and returns a Boolean. Note, we will explore the difference between using double equals and the method equals when we discuss Java operators. For now, use the method equals if you need to compare two strings. Okay. Now, I'm going to stop here because this video is getting long, and I'm going to pick it up in the next video, and we're going to go on 2.1.3. Now, again, I want to encourage you to go back and get an understanding. Watch the video again. Bookmark the video. Remember, the more you practice, the more you improve. Okay? I'll see you in the next part of this video, part 2.